What's up, guys? Intelitech Studios here, and today we're going to be discussing the first impressions, specifically my first impressions, of the Hoover PowerDrive Swivel XL vacuum cleaner. Now, I've just unboxed this machine, and we are going to go ahead and talk about what things immediately stand out to me about this machine before I actually use it. And at the end of this video, we will use the machine, at least assuming my phone doesn't run out of storage space or something else stupid like that. So, this machine, as you can tell, I've just taken it out of the box. There's not a speck of dust that has gone through this machine. The machine has not even been powered on yet. So this is my completely fresh first impressions of the machine. Just overall, what I like and what I dislike from very, very first looking at the machine. First impressions. They say that first impressions last a lifetime. Sorry about that. Since they say that first impressions last a lifetime, let's see how the first impressions are on this particular Hoover. First off, as far as the overall design, there really isn't much here to complain about. First thing I notice, this is a swivel model. I've seen a lot of swivel models of vacuums from companies like Eureka and Bissell make swivel models, even Hoover, where they have made swivel models in the past that are uprights, where there's a lot of play in the machine. And whenever the machine is standing upright, it wiggles back and forth, and there's a lot of play in the machine. I'm happy to report there is very little play in this machine. It feels sturdy, it feels solid, and when it's upright, you can't even tell there is a swivel neck, which is exactly how it should be. That's something that Hoover has done a great job with this machine. Whenever the machine isn't upright, the swivel is not getting in the way, and it is not painfully obvious that this is a machine where the structural integrity of the machine was compromised in order to accommodate a swivel neck on a budget upright. This is a welcome feature, and that is something that I'm very happy to report is not a problem on the Hoover, and that is the play in the machine when it's standing upright. Another thing that I really like about the machine, the metal handle. The handle feels sturdy, it feels solid, there are no issues with the handling. There are plenty of other machines, especially other swivel machines in the price range of this machine, even from companies that I like Bissell, for example, where their Powerlifter Swivel Pet machine, I have complained about that machine, how poor the handle feels in the hand. When you're twisting the machine and navigating the swivel, it's very important for a machine with a swivel neck to have a very sturdy handle. Otherwise, you're going to have the machine creaking and bending every time you go to use the swivel neck on the machine, and that will cause discomfort. It'll cause a feeling of the machine being cheap, and in some cases, it can in fact lead to the machine getting damaged as a result of prolonged use and stress on the plastic body. That is one thing that is very nice. This is a metal handle. It clips right into the back of the spine of the machine. It is very robust. There is very little play. There is very little flex. Not to say that companies can't make plastic that is still flexible, but that is still durable. A lot of Dysons we've seen with that design, where the machine does have a little bit of play in it still, but it still overall feels sturdy and it is still relatively good quality plastic. This does not even make that compromise. It is just simply firm, good, solid feeling plastic. There are no compromises in the structural integrity of the machine whatsoever. I know I'm harping on that, but it's something that is very important, especially for a machine with a swivel neck, because when you're pushing it back and you're actively trying to twist it around, the machine needs to feel structurally rigid. Otherwise, you're not going to want to use a swivel neck because it's going to feel like you're breaking your vacuum. And after you just dropped $100 on a machine, that's the last thing you want to feel like you're doing. I noticed that this is laid out in a very similar fashion to machines like the Black & Decker Air Swivel, but make no mistake, I have been very critical of that machine because the build quality in that machine is nowhere near this machine. This machine's build quality is very solid. There are really no complaints as far as the actual build quality of the machine that I can really complain about, save for a couple things. One of those things is the attachments. Now, looking at the Crevice tool and the extension wand, there's not much to complain about here. The Crevice tool is a nice length. It's small enough to get into a good amount of spaces. The extension wand has a nice telescoping feature, and the actual telescoping mechanism is a lot more robust, and it feels better than it does on older Hoovers with this design, but it still has many of the same complaints that I've noticed where whenever it's not locked, it feels a little bit loose, but once you have it locked in place, it's pretty sturdy. One issue that I've described with that is that the hose, when you actually take off the hose and connect it to it, it actually sits recessed in the hose. And that can give the impression that it's not in there all the way. It's not necessarily a functional problem, it just is a little cosmetic thing that Hoover still has yet to address. But I can understand why that's not that priority when you look at a machine that in this price range where functionality is a lot more important. The other thing I love, it's standard 1.25 inch. So any attachments that you want to use that are off-the-shelf attachments, you can use. And that's definitely a good thing, because in just the short time that I've been pressing this hose on this dusting brush has been getting deformed pretty badly. And that is one thing I will say. Hoover, what is this? No offense, this is garbage. While the extension wand and the crevice tool are great attachments, and I definitely have no problems with them whatsoever, especially on a machine like this, this tool, this is a poor excuse for a tool. This release latch for this dusting brush, I've only released it once, and now it does not stay on there all the way. Whenever I put it on there, it doesn't feel like it's on all the way. There's a significant air gap. There is so much play in this attachment that it feels like I got a defective one out of the factory. These brushes, while they are very nice and soft and they seem like they'd be great for dusting, they're already starting to deform a little bit. Now, I will use this with the machine, of course, and report back on the results, but even ignoring the brush, the actual upholstery tool, it's still, see, this connector wiggles, this connector wiggles. When you put it this way, it still wiggles. It doesn't like to stay in place. Like, it relatively stays in the position that you put it in. When you actually put it in a half position, it's actually more sturdy, ironically, than if you actually lock it in the angled or in the straight up and down position. So that's not very good. Although, the nice thing about that is because this particular machine is standard 1.25 inch, it means that any attachments you have that you want to use, you can do that. If you want to buy more extension wands, you can get them from Hoover very cheaply, or at the very least on Amazon. Any standard 1.25 inch attachments from just about any company will fit on the end of this hose. That is very, very nice, and a feature that I really like, especially as a person who's had a pretty decent collection of Wessel Work and Dyson attachments, which are very good quality attachments, and I would like to be able to use them even on a cheaper machine for when I'm doing above floor cleaning, and this Hoover allows me to do that. That is another great feature that I'm really liking already with this machine, even without having used it. So, recap on the attachments, first impressions: crevice tool, extension wand, great. Combination tool, not great is the nice way of putting it. I also noticed that it doesn't even like to store on the machine all the way. There's a significant gap on where it sits on the unit. The extension wand and crevice tool don't have that problem. So Hoover, this combination tool needs more work. I would like it if you just went back to having two separate attachments for your dusting and upholstery. I do like the fact that there's no turbo brush on this model, because Hoover's recent turbo brushes, especially on the aforementioned Tempo and T-Series, have been less than ideal. So I actually support the idea of them just scrapping the turbo brush entirely until they get it right. So that is one thing. Some people are going to mention the fact that you don't have a turbo brush. I don't mind that, especially in this price range. I only paid $100 for this machine, so I'm not complaining one bit. And again, it is standard 1.25 inch. You can buy any Hoover turbo brush and it will fit on this machine. That is wonderful. So the attachments, A-okay. The hose has a little latch, holds in place. So far, like that. Haven't tested the durability of it yet because obviously the machine is brand new. Ability for the hose to stretch, no complaints so far. It stretches a good amount. Seems like it'd be good enough to get above high, but not good enough to get up your stairs. $100 machine, what can you really complain about? Again, that's how much I paid for this machine at my local Walmart. Your mileage may vary. I also like the fact that there's an actual buffer right here to keep the hose protected so it doesn't get kinked and doesn't get damaged like a lot of hoses on machines in this price range do. You have a cord wrap, no complaints there, exactly what you would expect from any machine in this price range. Another thing that I love about this Hoover, two things I absolutely love about this machine. Number one, you have a huge capacity. The max line is all the way up here. You have a very, very large capacity. This dirt bin has a lot of weight to it. That's good. It feels sturdy. Haven't had any issues with the build quality as of late. It would be nice if this release button was a little bit further up on this bin, but I'll take it. It releases just fine. It's completely clear so you can see the inside of the dual cyclonic mechanism, and the max fill line is all the way up here. very good capacity. I know a lot of people have been complaining about bagless vacuums not having a good enough capacity. Hoover, you've addressed that with this machine. Kudos to you. Another thing, this filter pulls straight out. No frills, no issues, no fuss. You pull the filter straight out. There is no latching or locking mechanism that a customer can potentially screw up and break because they don't read the instructions. This, you yank it out, you clean it, you stick it back in, no complaints. Another thing, the export of the bin is through the spine of the machine. It's not through the bottom of the dirt cup. That's another thing that I really, really like. I've seen so many machines, even in much more expensive price categories, where the actual air is fed through the bottom of the machine. And I've expressed my issues with that because it means every time you dump the machine, your average customer is going to have dust all over the inside of this that you're going to close it on there because most customers aren't wiping off the bins, and that's getting sucked into the filter or potentially, depending on the unit, even into the motor. This does not have that problem. The design is much more well thought out. Another thing, based on this design, you can very easily pull apart the cyclone to clean it. Another great feature that I'm already liking about the machine. This handle, a lot sturdier. Here I have an old wind tunnel T-Series. This handle, not so hot. This handle up here, also not so hot on this machine. Hoover doesn't sell this exact unit anymore, but they do still sell the tempo that's pretty similar to it. The tempo is a lot better, but this, better in every way. They have actually made improvements in that regard. Very happy with that. Another thing I like, as far as I know, this is just a basic stretch belt. There is no belt shutoff mechanism to my knowledge. That is one thing I will test to see how well it works on hard floors. One thing I've always liked about machines is that squeegees often make them too hard to push on carpet. Felt gaskets, in my opinion, are the way to go. This machine has a felt gasket. Win, win, win. There have been so many features that a lot of other vacuum companies have overlooked that Hoover has included on this machine, and that absolutely makes the first impressions on this machine very, very positive. My one complaint, you have rubber coated wheels on the main wheels, which is good. I commend that. But much like many other companies, you overlooked adding the rubber wheels to the height adjustment wheels. The height adjustment wheels roll along the floor just as often as the main wheels do. They need a rubber coating as well, otherwise they can scratch the floor just as much as the big wheels could. So, as far as my first impressions on this machine, so far, that's about it. I haven't actually measured the cord length to see how long that is. We will discuss that in a later video. So, I'm going to check and make sure I have enough time left on my camera. And I do still have a little bit of time on my camera. Let's push that. Yep, just to make sure. So, with that in mind, our first impressions, before even running the machine, are out of the way. So we're going to go ahead, plug in this machine, see how it sounds, and see how it cleans. So this is not the full review, by the way. This is just the first impressions. So I will be using this machine as my daily driver for about a week and change, if not 2 weeks, and reporting back with the final results in the full in-depth review of this machine. So it's plugged in. We're going to turn it on, see what it sounds like. Okay, so first impressions after running the machine on my carpet for about 2 minutes. And I'm going to make this very brief. My phone's running out of space. I don't want this video to cut short. So far, I'm impressed with this machine. I already vacuumed this with 2 other machines. It got a very good amount of stuff considering this is a very small area of carpet. The motor does not sound nearly as bad as many other machines on the market nowadays in this price range. The motor is still a decent high pitch, but it's very muffled. The sound dampening on this machine sounds like it's very decent. It's not a pain to listen to. It does not hurt your ears after a while listening to it, at least in my house. The swivel neck is relatively rudimentary, but that also means that there's less to go wrong with it. There's less complicatedness that it brings into. You don't get a lot of swivel, but it does make maneuvering a little bit easier versus having 4 fixed wheels altogether. So that is nice. Pushing it on carpet and pulling it is very, very nice. I don't know why it got stuck on one random part of carpet. I don't know if something got jammed in it, but it didn't have any problems. It was able to get past it just fine. And I got a good amount of dirt just from that small area, which is very, very nice. I am going to vacuum the rest of my carpet with this machine later on and see how well it works in my home. Deep cleaning, going above the floor, and all that. And I'll report back with the full review in a week and changes time, potentially around 2 weeks. I want to make sure to get a good feel for the machine before I jump to conclusions in the full in-depth review. So, if you want to see an in-depth review on this machine, going top to bottom, discussing every possible part of the machine, and having a very, very long, detailed, in-depth review to see if this machine is worth your investment, subscribe to Untitled Studios. I will be bringing the goods. So, that's my first impressions and first use of the Hoover PowerDrive Swivel XL vacuum. I will see you guys in the next video. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you all have a good one. Peace.